Today we will introduce you to a very unusual country. Here are the happiest residents in the world. This state is recognized as the least corrupt in the world. There are twice as many bicycles as cars, almost. Every inhabitant of the country can swim, buses can, if necessary, bend to the right at stops to facilitate the boarding of disabled people, women with baby strollers, and the elderly. An attempt to escape from prison is not considered a crime here. If a fugitive is caught, he will only have to serve out his sentence. The state is one of the countries with the smallest income gap between the poorest and the richest, and is the leading country in terms of the level of employment of the population. There are practically no buildings in the country whose height exceeds 6 floors. Education is free at all stages. The working day for most people here starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 4 p.m. There are no severe frosts and no heat. Almost all year round the temperature here ranges from cool to more or less warm. The birth rate is one of the lowest in the world. From anywhere in the country to the ocean can be reached in just 52 kilometers. In 2020, the capital of the state was recognized as the best European city to live in. This is Denmark, a miniature kingdom in northern Europe, which is called the Pearl of the Scandinavian Peninsula. What is the reason for the effective functioning of a particular state? The successful fight against corruption, the rapid implementation of initiatives in the field of education and medicine. Different governments use different strategies and tactics. The effectiveness of these approaches is evaluated by various international indices and ratings. For example, the Rule of Law Index, or the World Bank Public Administration Quality Index, or the Social Progress Index. An annual survey of residents of different countries is conducted. The data are summarized, studied, and the conclusions are published in different categories. And although at first glance these indices reflect different spheres of government activity, the same countries occupy the highest places in all ratings over and over again. All Scandinavian countries consistently occupy high places in the indices we have mentioned, but Denmark differs from its neighbors and from the rest of the world in that it has almost perfect indicators in the ranking of the basic human needs of the International Social Progress Index. These needs include nutrition, medical services for citizens, and ease of access to basic types of communication and knowledge. All these advantages can be enjoyed not only by citizens of this country. The health and social care system in Denmark is well developed and accessible to anyone who lives there. For example, as a foreign student you can get financial assistance. Free language courses are open for you. The Danish social support system relies more on mutual trust than on bureaucratic procedures. When Danes are sick and can't attend university classes, or come to the office for work, they just call and report it. In Germany, for example, both students and an employee are required to present a certificate from a doctor. In both countries, public administration is pretty well established, but the Germans like it when everything is fixed and confirmed on paper so that there is order, while the Danes in almost any situation just behave like friends. Life in Denmark compared to other European countries may seem expensive. There are the highest taxes in the EU, but the result of such taxes are the benefits that citizens enjoy. The people here are friendly and open. Danes live in the style of hygge. Watching a movie with friends in the evening, or having dinner together is very tacky. It's very hygge. Danes like to talk, hang out and just sit together, enjoying a cozy atmosphere with candles, delicious food and interesting conversation. The Danish writer Hans Christian Andersen is certainly not Nostradamus, but being a famous storyteller, he was also noted as a prophet. In modern Denmark, it is considered that the economic miracle that the country experienced in the second half of the 20th century was predicted, and perhaps even programmed by the famous tale of the ugly duckling, which Hans published in 1843. In the fairy tale, an ugly duckling turned away from his relatives, even his own mother, after experiencing multiple hardships, humiliation, loneliness, and despair, was able to turn into a beautiful white swan, which was also accepted into a completely different flock. In reality, the former backwater of civilized Europe, a small country on the coast of cold seas, experienced an equally wonderful transformation. For many centuries, the Danes were fed by fishing and agriculture. The Danish peasant was the hero of jokes in refined Europe, on an equal footing with the Finnish lumberjack and the Norwegian Santa Claus. Even in the middle of the 20th century, when the countries of Europe that had experienced serious cataclysms, such as Italy and Germany, were creating their economic rebirths included in textbooks, Denmark continued to fish and pick at the ground. The country, located in the north of Europe on the shores of the cold North Sea, bought all energy resources from its gas-rich neighbors and oil-rich countries of the Persian Gulf. The first oil crisis of the 1970s broke out. Gasoline and energy prices soared. 1 or 2 cold winters were enough for the Danish mentality to rethink its existence. Having sat in frozen comorts off the shores of the North and Baltic Seas like a duckling from an Ederson fairy tale, they gathered their courage, spread their wings, and went to do what the phraseological dictionary of the Russian language most accurately describes with the expression "give the world devils." In just a couple of decades, Denmark has transformed. The country has not only been able to fully provide itself with electric and thermal energy, but has created a real high-tech economy on the ruins of an agricultural village. Denmark does not spend its gold and foreign exchange reserves on the purchase of energy resources abroad. On the contrary, national energy-saving technologies and energy management are becoming one of the main export items, according to such an important indicator as the volume of foreign trade turnover per capita. Denmark ranks first in the world, and the Danish economy boasts a completely unique feature. The country's GDP is growing every year, but the amount of energy consumption is not. That is, the Danes consume the same amount of energy every year. They manage to produce more and more goods and services. The Danes themselves do not think so. Socialism is not an end, but a means to an end, they say. And this is the key difference between the Danish model of the one that was planted in the Soviet Union by the descendants of workers and peasants who overthrew the landlords and almost forever said goodbye to private property. In Denmark, socialism is perceived not as a super idea of equality of the poor and the poor with the rich and smart, but as a policy of common sense. If Soviet-style socialism assumed total equalization, then Danish socialism assumes equal duties. The strikers of socialist labor choked on starting, seeing that someone lives better. The average statistical Dane understands that in order for everyone to feel good, everyone should also try. Back in the 1970s, when energy-saving programs were in their infancy, the Danish government was headed by people who had the courage to ask citizens to save heat and light as much as possible, and citizens responded. Accurate counters were installed throughout the country, calculating the consumption in gigacalories per hour. At night, the lights were turned off on the streets and in shopping malls. Citizens were not outraged and stayed at home at night. By the way, even in modern Copenhagen there is only one drinking and gastronomic place where you could have a snack at night. Fortunately for visitors, this is not a McDonald's. An even bolder step was the law on weekends without cars. The authorities banned the activities of gas stations on weekends, so most Danes began to move by car only on working days. On weekends, the country went hiking and switched to bicycles, and again ordinary Danes took the initiative with understanding. The economy of gasoline amounted to hundreds of thousands of tons of dollars of man-hours per year. In turn, the authorities showed the reverse side of Danish socialism, the ability to listen to the opinion of their citizens when they tried to build the country's first nuclear power plant. Under the leadership of the Green Party, the whole country took to the streets with protests, and despite the fact that Denmark is the birthplace of the father of nuclear physics, Niels Bohr, the law on nuclear energy was rejected. The authorities completely abandoned their initiative. Again, there were no bloody sweeps of students and youth by paramilitary special forces with the subsequent unfolding of an internal political crisis of the Maidan II type. Instead, to the detriment of many other budget items of a state that was not rich at that time, serious funds were directed to the development of alternative energy sources. In just a few years, Danish companies have not only developed solutions that made it possible to provide the country's energy with wind energy by 20%, but also became trendsetters in the global market of alternative energy sources. In the shortest possible time, Denmark acquired a new national idea. It was not socialism in itself, but new energy, in other words, common sense, thanks to new technologies of state financing and high loyalty of ordinary citizens. The states in the country began to actively use bioethanol instead of gasoline, solar panels, recycling of waste, eco-friendly incineration of garbage, even as fuel for thermal power plants, hay and straw, native to both Danes and Ukrainians, began to be massively used instead of imported coal. With a very modest supply of natural resources, Denmark's economy relies almost entirely on human resources. The service sector occupies a large part of the labor market and the economy as a whole. Denmark's developed market economy depends on imported raw materials and foreign trade. Exports account for about 50% of Denmark's GDP. Denmark is known for its flex security system, designed to help businesses adapt to the rapidly changing global economy, but without destroying their lives. The system allows employers to fire employees easily and quickly, but it also guarantees laid-off people a decent support package for up to 2 years, as well as assistance in finding a new job. Denmark is one of the most developed countries in the world. The indicator of gross domestic product per capita is $49,883. Therefore, the country ranks 8th in the world ranking. As for the amount of income for this parameter, the state ranks 5th. The length of the working day in the country is from 6 to 6.5 hours. The international non-profit organization World Justice Project has published its annual report, The Rule of Law Index. The main purpose of the study is to find out how much the citizens of a particular state respect the law. According to the sum of all indicators, Denmark is recognized as the leader of the rating. 102 countries participated in the study. In particular, the legal environment, the nature of interaction between society and the state, the existence of an independent and unbiased court, the absence of corruption and others were considered. Denmark scored 0.87 points out of the maximum possible unit. Norway earned exactly the same amount, but taking into account all the indicators, it got the second step of the podium. Effective rule of law helps to reduce corruption, fight poverty, improve public health and education, and protect people from injustice and dangers large and small. All this would be impossible if ordinary citizens did not perceive the idea of the need to save, squeeze, try new technologies, in other words, sacrifice their comfort for the common good, such as Danish socialism. Common sense is at the forefront, a reasonable balance between the interests of the state and an individual citizen.